I'm Sandra. Standing in the country club parking lot, I watched my sister sitting on the curb in her emerald green dress, shoes off, knees pulled to her chest. Her husband had just pulled his hand away from hers in front of 83 people at the party, and the silence in the ballroom was deafening. It was a moment that would change everything, not just for her, but for our entire family. I remember it was a Tuesday in March when my life took an unexpected turn. I was 31, a speech therapist at a public elementary school in Greenville. I drove an old 2012 Subaru Outback with a cracked taillight that I'd meant to fix for ages. I rented the upstairs of a duplex from a kind old couple who left me homemade peach jam on my doorstep every July. My lunch was always packed in the same Tupperware I'd bought when I started teaching 8 years ago. That year, my biggest splurge was a refurbished espresso machine I'd found on Facebook Marketplace for $90. I was ordinary, and I liked it that way. Then, my dad called. He never called during work hours. I was in the staff lounge, munching on a turkey sandwich when his name lit up my phone. I stepped into the hallway, bracing myself for bad news. "Sweetheart," he said in that calm, measured voice he used when he had something difficult to say. "Are you free this Saturday morning? Your mother and I would like you to come to our cabin in the mountains. There's something we need to discuss with you. Just you. Just me. Not my sister, Lily." A chill ran down my spine, but I said yes. The cabin was about a 2-hour drive from Greenville. It was a simple place with cedar shingles, a wood-burning stove, and a porch with 2 rocking chairs that my dad had refinished himself. We used to go there in the summers to pick blackberries until our hands were stained purple. When I arrived that Saturday, my mom was waiting on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. She hugged me tighter than usual, and that's when I really started to worry. Inside, there was a small woman in her 60s, wearing reading glasses on a silver chain and holding a leather portfolio on her lap. My dad introduced her as Miss Thompson, our family attorney. I had no idea we even had a family attorney. "Sit down, honey," my dad said. "We have a lot to tell you." Over the next 2 hours, my whole world was turned upside down. My parents, who I thought were an ordinary middle-class couple, were actually secretly wealthy. My father had founded a successful tech startup in the 1990s, sold it for a fortune in 2008, and reinvested the money. My mother, who I thought was a part-time librarian, was the company's financial advisor. They explained that they'd grown up in poverty and had seen how money could corrupt people. They decided to raise my sister and me with simple values, teaching us to be independent, kind, and responsible. The estate, structured as a living trust, was worth over $23 million after taxes and donations to charities they'd been supporting for decades. I was to receive $22,100,000, while Lily would get $900,000 and a beach house in Miami. I asked 3 times if I'd heard correctly. My dad nodded each time. I didn't feel excited or happy. I felt sick. Lily and I weren't extremely close, but she was my sister. We'd shared a room growing up, and she'd taught me how to do my makeup for my first date. Ms. Thompson then added a condition. "Until the formal transfer in 7 weeks, you cannot tell your sister or anyone in her circle. Your parents want to see how she behaves when she still thinks the estate will be divided equally." I asked what would happen if Lily passed the test. My mother replied, "We'll tear up the trust and split everything evenly. We're not trying to punish her. We just want to see who she really is." I drove home that night in a daze, pulling over twice because I could barely see through the fog. I sat in a fast food parking lot, eating a burger I had no appetite for, and watched the headlights on the highway. I made $46,000 a year, and now I was about to inherit a fortune. The next day, Lily called. She needed me to handle the calligrapher for the menu cards for her anniversary party, which was also my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. She didn't ask how I was or about my work. Then she casually mentioned the estate, saying she'd already talked to Mom about how it should be divided. The beach house in Miami should obviously go to her, and she thought the bulk of the money should be in her name because she was better at managing finances. I corrected her, saying I was a speech therapist, not a schoolteacher. She laughed it off. In the following weeks, I started to notice Lily's true colors. At her dinner parties, she introduced me as my sweet little sister who works with kids. She always volunteered me to clean up after the parties. And at a family gathering, she called dibs on our grandmother's heirloom jewelry before anyone else had even thought about it. I also found out that she'd been bragging about the upcoming inheritance to people at a charity event. My cousin, who lived in New York, called me and told me that Lily had spent the cocktail hour telling everyone that she was about to come into a large sum of money. She said it was in the 8 figures, my cousin said, half laughing, half shocked. I lied and said I had no idea what she was talking about. Then, her husband, Tom, made an offer on a $380,000 yacht. I found out because the broker's assistant accidentally CC'd me on a finance pre-approval form. Tom, who worked in real estate sales, had listed his expected income for the next 12 months as $4 million. He'd never made that much in his life. 2 weeks before the party, Lily invited me to lunch at an expensive downtown restaurant. She was already on her second glass of wine when I arrived. She looked exhausted but still beautiful. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Has Mom said anything to you about the prenup?" I was confused. I'd never heard of a prenup. She explained that Mom and Dad had insisted on a prenup when she and Tom got married, and Tom's lawyer thought there was a way to challenge it if the estate was divided unevenly. I told her Mom hadn't said anything about it. She seemed relieved. She then started talking about how they were worried about affording the renovations on the Miami beach house. I didn't say much during the rest of the lunch. The week before the party, I drove to the mountain cabin again. My parents had asked me to come. I told them about Lily's behavior, the yacht offer, and the prenup conversation. My mother closed her eyes, and my father put his hand over hers. "We're so sorry, sweetheart," my father said. "We never meant to put you through this." I said I was okay. Along the way, I'd stopped feeling sick about the money and started feeling sad for Lily. I asked what would change. My mother said, "Nothing. We're still going with the plan. But if this is too much for you, we can do something else. We can donate everything to charity." I looked out at the blooming dogwoods and said, "Stick to the plan, but after the party, I want to be able to give Lily something whenever I want, without conditions." My mother started to cry, and my father squeezed my hand tightly. The morning of the party, Miss Thompson met me at a hotel near the country club. There were 2 binders and a stack of documents an inch thick. I signed 17 places, and my parents signed 23. The notary, a kind woman named Mrs. Jenkins who smelled like lavender, stamped each page. By 2 p.m. $22,100,000 was in a trust account in my name, and the title to the mountain cabin was transferred to me with a clause allowing my parents to live their rent-free for the rest of their lives. I wore a simple dress I'd bought a few years ago and drove my Subaru to the party. I parked in the overflow lot and walked into the ballroom, feeling calm but heavy. Lily was already there, looking stunning in her emerald green silk dress. She hugged me and said I looked tired and should get my hair done. The dinner was wonderful. There were 83 guests, a 4-course meal, and 3 toasts. My father gave a beautiful speech about my mother that made half the room cry. Lily gave a speech about how she and Tom hoped to have a marriage like my parents, but in a way that made it seem like she thought she could do better. After dessert, my mother stood up. The room got quiet. She explained that the estate had been transferred that morning into a living trust. She said that $900,000 and the Miami beach house were going to Lily and Tom, and the rest was going to me. The room went completely silent. Lily's face changed. She tried to hold it together. I saw her swallow hard, and her hand reached out to Tom's, but he pulled away. That was the moment. She said in a small voice, "Mom?" My mother went to her, put her arms around her, and said, "Sweetheart, we love you. This is a chance for you." Lily didn't cry then. She held herself still, let my mother hug her, and then walked out of the ballroom with dignity. Tom didn't follow her. I did. I found her in the parking lot, sitting on the curb. "Don't," she said when she saw me. "Just don't." I sat down next to her. "I'm not here to gloat," I said. "I'm here because you're my sister." She was quiet for a long time. "How long have you known?" she finally asked. 41 days, I said. She laughed bitterly. 41 days, you sat across from me at lunch and let me talk about the prenup, and you knew? I said yes. She put her head down on her knees. "I knew we couldn't afford the yacht, but I thought soon we'd be able to," she said. I asked if Tom was going to leave her. She nodded. He and his mother have been waiting for an excuse. They thought I was bringing money and a good family. The next few months were tough for Lily. Tom filed for divorce 23 days later. His mother stopped returning her calls. The yacht deal fell through, and the reservation for the Tuscan villa was cancelled. The renovations on her large mortgaged house were put on hold. But then, something unexpected happened. In August, Lily got a job as an event coordinator at a small nonprofit in Charlotte. The pay was low, and the hours were long. She admitted she was terrible at it at first, but she stuck with it. In October, she sold her big house and moved into a one-bedroom apartment near her office. She started making her own coffee in the morning and called our mother once a week to ask how she was. In November, she called me on a Saturday afternoon. I was gardening on the back deck of my duplex. She said, "Mom's birthday is coming up. What if we do something together for her? Just the two of us. We could drive to the mountain cabin and surprise her." I said yes. We're not perfect. There are still days when she snaps at me, and I'm still angry about the way she used to introduce me. But we're working on it. My father once told me that the money was just a receipt, and the real inheritance was the values we were raised with. I didn't understand then, but I do now. The money only revealed who we were deep down. Lily learned a hard lesson, but I think she got the better end of the deal in the long run. I often think about those 41 days, not the money, but the moment when everything changed for Lily. It made me realize that character, judgment, and perseverance are the real treasures in life.